We are talking about your money right now, and I have an associate professor at Gonzaga University. Ryan's joining us right now. Ryan, I want to talk money. I've already told you, very good at spending in it, not very good at making good decisions with it. We'll start just right out of the gate. As you look at the situation involving the country and the recent firing of the commissioner who oversees our country's economic data, what's your immediate opinion?
Um, Immediate opinion is our economy, and I think the economic data that we report on a monthly basis is incredibly complex. So, background story, the Bureau of Labor Statistics is responsible for surveying employers. They survey about 100,000 employers every month to get data on how many people they are employing. And then the data come in obviously in a series of waves, and they um, try to reproduce and report the data as fast as they can, but then they're doing it with incomplete data, so they have to make some assumptions, and they report the annual number or monthly number of jobs our economy gains every month. And then as more employers fill out the survey data, they get more accurate reporting. And so they go through a series of revisions. And really, what happened a couple weeks ago is the revisions came in unfavorably. It's not uncommon. Um, while people are seeing these big changes, it was about 100,000 jobs that were revised downward in May and June. The president and his administration weren't happy with their revisions. In reality, the revision number was relatively small compared to previous cycles. We have 160 million people in our labor force. 100,000 people is not a big number.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there's a lot of economic uncertainty going on right now around the labor market. Um, is our economy in a good place? Is it weakening? And all of this data is incredibly important when we start talking about policy.
Just in doubling down, right move from the president, move from the president in removing the commissioner.
I think wrong. I think what we've seen over the last 5 years has been a lot of uncertainty around data. And what we need to conduct policy and what the public needs is good, credible data. And when the administration is undermining the data gathering process and the data that is being reported, largely from nonpartisan individuals, then that's problematic. Even so the Bureau of Labor Statistics commissioner is nonpartisan,
Mm-hmm.
but they are appointed by the president, confirmed by Senate. Um, Even in President Trump's first two terms, the two individuals he appointed into this role have come out and spoken against the firing of the previous commissioner. So there's a lot of concern in the economics community that this is going to create increased uncertainty around the data that's being provided.
Well, I'll follow up then. So, I mean, the president has appointed someone who used to work for the Heritage Foundation. I have his name written down right here, E.J. Antony. Does that cause concern? I mean, and I get it, right? A nonpartisan, even though appointed by a partisan and then confirmed by, in this scenario, a partisan Senate. I mean, the Senate has a majority right now of Republicans. Is someone coming from the Heritage Foundation going to work extra hard to support President Trump's mission and agenda, or are they going to be able to do this the way the two previous individuals did?
Yeah, great question. I think the concern with the appointment of EJ Antonelli is more so his experience. He's 5 years out of his graduate program. He's never worked in survey collection or data analytics roles, as far as we know. He's been overly criticized on social media for some of his posts and misreporting, just badly misreporting data. So I think the concern with him isn't necessarily where he's coming from. He could have appointed someone from American Enterprise Institute, AEI, or Cato,
Mm-hmm.
which are more conservative think tanks, libertarian think tanks, and we would have been, I think, okay with that. There wouldn't have been the concern if they had the experience. This individual has no experience at all in this role.
Why is this reliable government information so important to our economic system? I mean, without it, what happens?
Yeah, it gets harder and harder to make policy, right? Everyone right now is anxiously awaiting the Fed, wanting the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates at the end of the day. And the Fed has relied on a relatively strong labor market as reasoning for them not needing to lower rates. The economy's good, the economy's good. Yet this new data that came out actually provided the Fed with um, a lot more evidence. Most of the market is now pricing in an interest rate reduction in September. So we need this accurate data to make sure the Federal Reserve is able to follow through and have policy that is needed. I think the U.S. and most, if you're looking at home buyers, are eagerly waiting for lower interest rates.
Yeah, well, I want to follow up there on the heels of the report, right? On top of the desire for a cut, we're staring down the barrel of the repercussions of tariffs. And I don't do what you do, but everything that I have read indicates that we have not yet felt the full brunt of this situation. I mean, I think in an earnings call yesterday, John Deere said they are expecting $600 billion in issues from the tariffs. We're seeing companies over purchasing so they have a stockpile of non tariff goods. I mean, what's the effect of that going to be? We've not felt it yet, right? Or am I jumping the gun?
We're slowly starting to feel bits and pieces of it. You're hearing employers start to comment that we are seeing price increases come through. U.S. firms are paying these tariffs. It's not being absorbed by these exporting countries. And at the end of the day, these tariffs, we just had a producer price index, which is usually raw materials and services come in really high. So there is some growing inflationary concerns. Households are still seeing price increases at the supermarket. They're not going down. So we know these inflationary effects are going to keep, inflation elevated above 3% at least for a considerable period of time. Um, so going back to the need for data, given the sharp, drastic changes this administration is making, there is growing uncertainty, and we need to have credible data so we can interpret and understand how these changes are playing out at the end of the day. If you look at where these data revisions came from, they were largely revised down from government jobs, from state and local governments, which isn't surprising given we've had an active push to downsize government. So it's not a shock that these numbers are being revised down as we get better and better data.
I want to talk a little bit about, and we'll circle back sort of to the last topic, but that's an interesting point that the numbers are reflective of the president's own actions. The White House says it's winning these trade back and forths. I mean, we've seen the first deal at the G7 in Banff with Great Britain. We've seen sort of some back and forth with other countries. We know there's an issue, a sticking point, I would say, for the most part with the Chinese. I mean, I don't think that deal's really moved at all, even though there was an extending of the baseline of the tariffs, I believe, at 50% through November. I mean, is the White House winning? Is this really good for us? Because the data that I'm seeing, and I'm seeing it over and over again, and I just talked to Senator Cantwell about this, is that this is our big trade partners who she's pushed for free trade agreements with, like, for instance, with India and Canada. This is going to hurt the Washington state economy. It's also going to hurt the economic and agriculture economy when it comes to Montana in feeder calf trade. I mean, are you seeing what the White House is saying is correct? Are they winning this trade battle? Is the trade war good?
Well, there's no winning. There's maybe losing less than the other, right? There's no winner in this. And I think the econ profession has uniformly, I think 99.9% of economists are all in agreement. You can't win. You're not coming out better in a trade battle. You might lose less than the other country, but we're still going to lose. It's going to come and cost US producers more. It's going to cost us export markets. You now have chip manufacturers, NVIDIA, needing to pay an export tax to ship to China. So there's not winning, right? If by winning, great, we won the war, but we lost how many lives?
Well,
if you're going to compare it that way.
and journalism here, both sides. The president is saying that he's been effective in bringing manufacturers back to America. I mean, we just saw a press conference at the White House with Tim Cook, who was saying he's expanding operation in several, I believe, Kentucky, several states, for iPhone manufacturing. I mean, is that effective? Or again, to your point on the flip, exporting that product back to China is going to be financially problematic for Apple?
Well, we have pledges. We have pledges of capital expenditures in the US from these companies. We do not have actual investment taking place yet in the US. So I think there's still a lot of uncertainty around what these pledges actually mean. Apple, great, pledged $100 billion to build US manufacturing in the US. What does that actually mean? And when are we going to start to see the development of these facilities? And I think most of us are skeptical that we probably won't see a lot of this come forward. And if we do, it's certainly going to come at a cost of um, higher prices to the consumer, right? An iPhone is going to cost significantly more if it's assembled in the US.
Yeah. We'll go back to the $44 billion question. Jerome Powell, appointed by the president, who the president is very much so at odds with, is not interested at this exact moment in time in an interest rate cut. You've touched on it. Do you think come September that's happening, or do you think Powell's going to stick firm?
I do think September we will see a cut. Usually, the Federal Reserve, when they shift course, they have a big meeting in August in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, of all places. And it's when everyone comes together and almost uniformly, if there's ever going to be sort of a shift in the policy action of the Fed, it's after that meeting. Most of the market, up until that producer price index report came out, was pricing in a rate cut. So I still think we are leaning that it's time for a rate cut. Um, and I think most economists are expecting at least one, if not two, rate cuts through 2025, given that labor market data that has shown considerable weakness. You heard, Jerome Powell is not in the favor of President Trump. President Trump's come out and blamed Steve Mnuchin for that appointment from his first term. But you're hearing mixed communication from the White House. President Trump wants interest rates cut 3%. He wants them down to around 1% right now.
I was going to ask
And
you,
that's been,
they're like
go
what,
ahead, yeah.
5, 6, 7%, right?
Right now, the federal funds rate is right between 4.25% and
Okay.
4.5%. So that's leading to a mortgage rate close to 7.
Okay.
President Trump would like to see interest rates down to 1%, giving us, sub 4 mortgage rates. Steve Bissett, his Treasury Secretary, came out and said he thinks the rate should be around 3%. What we call neutral, where we should be. He doesn't think it should be there right now, but he thinks it's where we need to be going
Okay.
to. So even from the White House, there is mixed messaging coming out. Sorry, my dog is shaking.
That's okay. We love a dog.
Even from the White House, there's mixed messaging on where they think interest rates should be. Um, President Trump just appointed a new member to the Federal Reserve Board. That's not going to do much to sway the board. It might be a dissenting vote in their meeting, but I already think we're going to see that 25 basis point, 0.25% rate cut, and hopefully put us on a trajectory to get down to 3% in the next 18 months.
Well, we're going to leave it right here, and we'll circle back up in, I think, late September. I look forward to talking to you again, and I might bring some financial questions to you for myself next time.
Yeah. I mean, I think the short of it is if when we get back in December, my hope is that we can have credible data that we can rely on, because there's so much economic uncertainty right now. We need this information.
We will leave it right here. Thank you so much, Ryan. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Bradley.
Tell the dog I said hi.
Oh, take care.
Bye.